This conference will now be recorded.
Reverend Sam Van Slyke from Bladencounty First Baptist will do the invocation, and Greg Martin will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand and remove your headgear, please.
Let's pray. Father, we come before you today. We thank you, Lord, for Bladen County, all the men and women and the citizens of this county. We thank you, Lord, for the commissioners here today, the men and women. We pray right now, Lord, you just pour out your spirit among each individual. May we lead according to your word, according to your truth. And Father, most importantly, we thank you, Lord, for Jesus, as you sent your son down to this earth by grace and for your love. We praise you for it. And we just pray, Lord, that everything done today will glorify your name. Jesus Christ, I pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So under the consent items, item number 2M, where it says it's need to change the fireworks for New Year's from, they put 12 midnight, but it's going to be 9 o'clock.
Can I ask you, I thought you have a thing that says no at all, so we'll still vote on that? I thought you had the thing that says no burning.
Well, we would vote on it, and then if the burning ban's in effect, then we'll cancel it at that time. That's usually what we do. So can I get a motion to approve? Motion by Mr. Cameron, give a second by Dr. Ellis. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed?
No.
Dr. Montgomery voted no. So this time I will turn it over to the county manager for election of a board officer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone. At this time, we'll have the election of board officers.
Motion to elect Mark Elizabeth chairman.
Second.
Motion to elect Ray Britt chairman. Second.
Okay, I'm hearing nominations for,
Motion to close.
okay. No, hearing no further nominations, if that's all we have. Mark Gillespie, Ray Britt, those are the nominations. So at this time, we'll have the vote on first nomination with Mr. Gillespie. Those in favor of Mr. Gillespie signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Before show of hands, please. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 4. So that there's not a majority there. Those in favor of Mr. Britt signify by saying red, show of right. Okay, congratulations, Mr. Britt. At this time, we'll have the election of vice chairperson.
Nominate Rodney Hester. Second.
Mr. has been nominated. Are there other nominations? Hearing none, no further nominations, and without objection, nominations are closed. Those in favor of Mr. Hester signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you very much. Congratulations.
We'll take a short recess at this time, be back in about 5 to 7 minutes.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, we'll go back and start our meeting. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for the opportunity to be chair again this year for representing the commission. But as we start the new year for me and for the other commissioners, I'd like to do something for me personally. I'd like that Mr. Cameron to bless me as well as the commissioners as we go forward this year. If you would.
Amen.
I'm asking for a word of prayer from Mr. Cameron for myself for the beginning of this year and the commission.
Oh. Father, thank you. It is indeed a privilege to serve. Lord, we thank you for the people that we represent, for those who have placed their confidence and trust that we would do the right thing. I pray we always would. Give us a discerning spirit, Lord, a heart that is pure, a mind that is, Lord, clear, decisions that, Lord, are right. Lord, when we disagree, I pray we would do it with dignity, when we agree with great passion. Father, I pray over the next year that you might direct our chairman, our vice chairman, and each commissioner. God, protect us from pride, keep us humble. I pray that we would see ourselves as those not elected to govern, but to guide. Those not to rule, but to be responsible to and for. This room might be a place of vision and purpose for Bladen County. We've had great days in the past. And Lord, we pray for even greater days in the future. It's in the bold and the powerful name of Jesus we pray. Amen.
Thank you, sir. Individual delegations that wish to address the commissioners.
Mr. John Adams?
I want to thank this commission for bringing this to the public for debate on the changes on the hunting regulation. I've been in a lot of conversations with the three different law enforcement entities that this overlaps, which includes the wildlife, which is the main enforcer of this. Also the sheriff's department, and also the highway patrol. And as of today, none of them can give me any instances of these activities taking place. Not one. I've got 3 calls since 1998 to the 911 center right here of firearms involved on the side of the road. 2 of them happened outside of hunting season. They were in August and September. They weren't even hunting activities going on at that time. The third was happened the 28th of December of last year, and more or less it was a trespass incident. No shots fired, no property damage, no personal injury. I am all for laws, local, state, federal. If this is an issue, if this is a problem taking place in our county, for God's sake, let's take some action. But if it's not a real issue, if there's no property damage, if there's no individuals impacted, if people doing the activities of deer hunting are law-abiding citizens, why do we want to impose more laws on them? Freedom never gets more free. It always gets more restricted. We don't need any more of our rights anymore. And as far as I know, everyone that I've ever hunted with, and there's multiple people in here, we would never shoot across state maintained highway. If we've got rights to hunt from the edge of the road to that land, yes, into the woods, not down the road, not across it. And I know a lot of deer hunters, and they're all on the same page. Hey, if this is a problem, yes, let's take action. But if not, what's the point? We're punishing the law-abiding citizens of our county. And yeah, I really, really thank this commission for opening this up for discussion, because these are different groups that don't normally associate. We don't get together enough. And it's a very large population of the county. Yeah, if you think about it, we're fourth or fifth in the state as far as size, right? We're 70th in population. We've got a very low population with a very large land mass. I think it's 39 people per square mile. Some places it's not even that. And if we need to pass laws to protect, citizens, bystanders, people's property, let's do it.
But I think we shouldn't vote on this tonight. I think we need to do our due diligence and find out the facts, get the right law enforcement bodies together, find out what exactly is the impact of this activity to the citizens, to personal property, to vehicles being damaged, whatever. We want to have all the information before we make laws, right? That's all I ask.
Thanks.
Thank you for your time.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else? One comment to add to that, sir. One of the most important things I heard that you said there, that your folks don't shoot across the road. And I think that's the point here for those that do. And we have to listen to both sides in our county of citizens. And it's all about safety. And we have a lot of people that are coming in from out of the county that seem not to respect the law either way. And laws have been put in their county that they can't do things, so they come in our way and causing havoc for some of our citizens that try to do the right thing. And we have to do what we think is right for everyone. And I had a lot of hunters call me all weekend at my business, so I took the call. But when I explained to them that the only change would be, you can still hunt beside the road. You can still hunt on the right of ways. You can still use your dog. You can still catch your dog. You can still have your gun on you, but shoot across the right of way for safety reasons. And that's the only thing we're saying, and that's the only change within it. And multiple counties have gone that direction. I just want to clarify to make sure that is the only change, is to shoot across that road.
Yes, sir, and I totally understand that, and I appreciate you clarifying that.
Right.
But again, my point is, before we make any laws, let's get with the law enforcement bodies. Let's get the right information. Let's get the facts. Is this a real problem? If our deer hunters here are obeying the law, why do we want to? It's more about an authoritarian type regime, and we all know what that feels like. Freedom never gets freer; it always gets more restricted. And if our people are doing the right thing, let's let them be free.
Thanks, sir. Matter of interest to commissioners.
I have one thing, Chairman.
Yes, sir.
This will be the least controversial thing of the evening. Had quite a few people come up to me and brag on Sheila Nance and what she's doing at the library. People said they've really seen great improvements. I just wanted to publicly brag on the folks there, their employees, and what they're doing. That's probably an area a lot of us don't visit, maybe as much as we should, but certainly I thank them for what they're doing there.
Anyone else?
I got one that I'd like to bring up is, when we met on the last meeting, we had an issue with Director Smith coming to us and asking for $145,000, was that correct?
Yes, sir.
$143,000. That issue has been corrected. We need to get with Mr. Morton to rescind that. That has been corrected. I made a phone call and I spoke with Ms. Strauss, and that has been corrected. And it's in the process. I can get confirmation on it, but it's in the process of being corrected.
Mr. Brett, they have, East Point has found a place for that kid to go, but they have not offered any money.
But the issue of us having to pay $145, all they had to do was one simple process. The provider was not eligible under East Point catchment. They made that provider eligible to receive Medicare funds for those children. It will not cost the county $145,000. That's how that matter was resolved. They made that provider. We can get Ms. Smith to come
I
in.
asked Ms. Smith before this meeting started where we were on that, and she says that they have found a place for those kids, but no money has been offered to pay what we owed in the past.
I don't know nothing about the past.
Okay.
All I know is that child that we supposed to be appropriating $143,000 for has been placed into a provider that can receive the funds for that child's care. She asked us for $143,000. to continue to care, not to pay past, but to continue
It
to
was
care.
passed and continued.
Yeah, correct. They resolved the issue. They're in the process of working through it.
Mr. Martin, check on that for us.
They're in the process of working
Anyone
through
else?
it.
I have two things. The first thing I'd like to, the board be aware that East Arcadia Fire Department will be closing effective the end of this year, the 31st of December. And Mr. Dallas and the fire marshal have been aware, and we're hoping that something that the county will have to do, at least bring to the board in the near future. And I would like to say on behalf of Master Sergeant retired Munn, the fire chief, that we appreciate his service, and he has been trying to carry this by himself for the last 15 years. And he's a 20-year plus veteran. He served in Yellowstone. He's a Bronze Star recipient, and his VA doctors are telling him it's time for him to move away because he's a pay-up trooper. And so as you get older, it's kind of tough. So he is now saying that he will be resigning effective the 31st of December. That's the first thing. Mr. Chair, my last statement I'd just like to say, I enjoy serving this board, this county commissioner, but I am truly disappointed that our chair and vice chair position are flip-flop between you and Mr. Peterson. It bothers me that you don't believe, or you, a few of you, do not believe there are others on this board cannot serve in that capacity. I wonder if this because of, I hope it's not racial, I hope it's not political, because everyone in Bladen County is either one of three parties, independent, Democrat, or Republican, it doesn't matter. But when we serve here, we serve for everyone. We don't just say we're gonna help the Republicans, we're just gonna do Democrats, we help everyone. And it's sad that the other folks, not for myself, at this point, I wouldn't do it because I don't have the time to chair. But there are other members of this commission have been on this board, this in-town commissions for 8, 10, 4 years. But they are not given the opportunity to be the chair or the vice chair. Now, it cannot be a couple of dollars. Or is it because you want to control the agenda? I don't know what it is. But to be fair to the citizens of Bladen County, I believe that everyone should have that opportunity. I understand you get the votes, but I think it's unfair that they are pushed or people have to be put on a thumb to vote instead of vote their conscience. They have to get someone to push them. You'll see people come in and out. They don't come to this commissioner's meeting to help and encourage us. What happens, they come in to be a threat. Folks, when we are servants of this county, it's not a threat for us. People come here to serve, truly serve. And I don't think it's right that these two people could flip the flop as chair, vice chair, just because you get the vote. But it's not the right thing, is what I'm saying. Be fair, be respectful, and do for everyone.
Anything else, Dr. Monroe?
Thank you.
Anyone else? With that being said, I declare open hearing to receive comments regarding the 2022 Schedule of Value Standards and Rules in accordance with NCGS 105-317. Does anyone here have any concerns? Want to discuss that? If not, I consider this. Okay, yes, sir.
I think he pretty much knows some of the questions I'm gonna ask. When we got these rates, it looks like to me, pretty much all the residential rates went up. When you start looking at the business rates, some of those, most of those stayed the same, and some of them actually went down. I was just wondering what the reason is behind that.
Yeah, yes, sir. I think when we were talking about the how we set some of the rates, we talked about the three methods of appraisal, and mostly we use cost backed up market value. Market value is based on the sales, and we have a lot of residential sales. And we have hardly few of those commercial sales, like a funeral home sale, so we really don't have anything to go by as far as that. We look at the Marshall Swift guide and try to come up with those figures. And there's quite a few of those different things. We've made some changes on some of the industrial, like light industrial and heavy industrial. Some of those, we see a little bit more, emphasis on. But some of the other ones where maybe there might be one or two properties in the county that have those. And we are able to use those same values, but we use the effective age to move them up and down sometimes by when we review them.
And we've seen that in a lot of cases, the effective ages of the structures. It needs to be brought up. They're in better shape than is currently reflected. So we have done that a good bit. And I want to touch on something briefly too. We mentioned last week, or the last meeting, the $90 base rate. The way our system works, we have a subjective grading system that we apply to the structures. C being average, A top of the line, E bottom of the line. But we put that $90 base rate on the straight average C structure, the average. As we go to a B grade, better quality, and A grade, better quality even, that rate escalates and values accordingly. For the D and E grades, where it's lesser quality, that base rate de-escalates, it goes down and values those accordingly too. So I was hoping that might shed a little light the way the system works. In the system, it just works, going up and down.
The question I want to ask is, during the last couple of valuations I've been a part of, you see homes value change. Some of them kind of change gradually. When you get approached by the citizen, they'll make a statement, why did my tax rate change and go up when the house is the same? I haven't done anything to it different. I haven't added anything. In a layman's term, how will we define to a resident if their house go up in value? Instead of 8 years with any depreciation, but it goes up. How do we define to them what's happened to that house to make that value go up?
Again, market
value. Yeah.
Determining current market value. It may be different than it was prior.
Would that market value be based on here in Bladen County from sales, or where the market value be? Strictly from here?
Yes, sir.
So that means if someone builds some houses in close proximity somewhere, you would assess their house on that market value with what that house sold for.
Yes, sir.
And actually elevate their house or lower, either way.
It can have a bearing on it, yes, sir. And another thing is too, when we physically look at the structures, we may feel they're in better condition than, as I mentioned before, than they're currently listed. So we do our best to determine that.
And you can look at a house 8 years ago and say it's in better condition than it was 8 years ago with no depreciation.
It may not. It may have been mislabeled 8 years ago. It may not have been called exactly what it was, and we can only look at it currently and call it what we think it is today.
That would be your justification to that citizen, why his house changed back.
Yes, sir.
You give him an explanation with something to show why it changed that way. You can show him something physically that he can look at and see why it changed.
Yes, sir.
They have the right to appeal, and if they need us to go in the house and see what kind of damages are inside, because we never get inside. It's mass appraisal, so we're looking at the exterior. Could be torn off pieces on the inside. So they have the right to appeal, and if they've got an fee appraisal, we take those in consideration. Anything they can, give us to dispute the value, we will listen to them.
Oh, we're open-minded, certainly. When it comes down to an appeal, then we look at it. And if there's justification there to lower the value, absolutely, we're happy to do it.
Okay, the reason I ask this question is I've had some people that know that you guys are kind of, things happen with the reevaluation process. And they're telling me that they don't want to do anything to their house to improve it, to paint, or do anything to it. Simply because you guys are coming around. So that's what, see, that's serious, but they literally make that statement. That they don't want to add nothing, do nothing, fix anything. Because if they do anything to it to enhance it, you guys can elevate the price of it up. And I'm just trying to figure out how you justify it and tell them what they need to do with their house.
Well, we try not to go on cosmetics.
Okay.
We look further into it than that. We do our best to anyway.
Okay, that's not good.
I'm sure you all are aware that there's a moratorium at Bay Tree now. So obviously the homes are skyrocketing because of that, but the vacant lots, has that been kind of backed up and reevaluated that? They're not building?
We're still looking at that. We're intending on doing something though. Yes, sir.
You talked about, market value. Is that what you've done already, or when have you completed? Have you done? Have you done? Have you completed everything?
We're,
Right.
go ahead, Gene, we'll speak to that.
You know, we're, you know, so continuation, we try to get everything up to January 1st. That's the statute requires everything to be at market value as of January 1st of 2022. And that's where we aim to get. The process is still going on because we are still reviewing properties that the field people have already marked them up, and then we have different people looking at the pictures and adjusting the effective ages to come up with that.
My only, I guess it's the same thing Mr. Cosgrove was saying. When you look at the value of their home and the market now is a seller's market. So it's really inflated. And so are you looking at those dollars of value that they're selling now? Is there a formula that you can look, because 2 years from now, it may be a buyer's market?
It may be, yes, ma'am. And the state, the Department of Revenue has a little formula for if the market goes up or down, that it gets too far out of whack, then they would require another revaluation by the county. I think it's like 85% or 15% of market values. But they track the county, Department of Revenue tracks the sales from the county every year, random sales, and I think a sales ratio thing that I put in the program.
It shows that? Okay, includes that. Okay, thank you.
Only question I have, on mobile homes, do y'all check for axles and tires, make sure are they air steel or what?
We do our best. Yes, sir. I mean, the tongue is obvious. Other than that, skirting, we're not going to go there and remove personal skirting on a home and crawl under it. No, sir.
But if the tires and axles are moved, it's considered stationary property.
Real property, yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Thanks, sir.
Can I verify? So both and, or is it or? Tires and tongue, or tires and?
Both.
Got to be both?
Both.
So on my...
Tongue, tires, and axles. And usually when a double wide is set up, they are indeed removed, usually.
How about on single? Because I split the tongue under the mobile home, and the tire's still there.
Single wides are generally just considered personal property.
Okay, all right, good.
All right, thank
you.
Anyone else?
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right, gentlemen, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Can I get a motion in or water board?
Motion or?
Got a motion by Mr. Peterson, second by Mr. Hester. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Mr. Kip,
Yes, sir. Thank you, board. We have with us tonight Mr. Michael Scott, Ms. Laura Leonard with the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality, and they're here to give us an update on our Gen X situation in Bladen.
Good evening, Mr. Scott. Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioners.
We appreciate the opportunity to update commissioners this evening on the compound Gen X and other PFAS in Bladen County. Like Kip said, I'm Michael Scott with North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality, Director in the Division of Waste Management. This evening, I want to touch on a few items. I'll try to move fairly quickly, but talk specifically about these per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, or what you may hear in the local national media as PFAS. Talk a little more about specific compound, Gen X, which is generated here in Bladen County at the Morris plant. Talk about the significance of some November letters that came out from our agency, the Department of Environmental Quality, some updates at the federal level, work that EPA is doing that we wanted to update the Board of Commissioners on, and talk about the ongoing work of through the consent order as it relates to groundwater sampling, water resources, and air quality. So a lot of you, I'm sure, are very familiar with this subject. We talk a lot at the state level about a class of compounds called emerging compounds, meaning there's not a lot of scientific information, health information, regulatory standards about them. One of these compounds is Gen X, like I stated previously, that is created at the Chemours plant. They're on Highway 87 in Bladen County. And as stated, there's not a lot of information at the federal and state levels, but we know that these compounds are present and can produce risk to our citizens within the and to the environment. Our department, DEQ, does have a lot of this information available to the public on our website, along with the state's Department of Health and Human Services. So when we talk about these compounds, and specifically the one compound you hear a lot about called Gen X, a lot of this started mid-2017 when the discharge of this particular compound was found specifically in the Cape Fear River and other surface waters. Around that same middle part of 2017, we discovered that groundwater around the Fayetteville Works plant also had the detection of this compound. And if you're not familiar with them, they're man-made. They're not naturally occurring like some heavy metals in North Carolina's environment. This is truly a man-made compound. And around that same time, mid-2017, we found out that a lot of the contributions that were found in Bladen County's groundwater, surface water, also Cumberland County at the time, and Robeson, were through air emissions, or these compounds were coming out of the stack there at Chemours at Fayetteville Works plant. And so in 2018, testing of those emissions from the stack and drinking water wells started to ensure that citizens, not only in Bladen County, but Sampson, or actually Robeson and Cumberland to start with, were not being exposed to this compound and others. In February 2019, there was a significant development in that a consent order was signed between who I work with, the state's Department of Environmental Quality, Chemours, and also Cape Fear River Watch. And that was entered into in Bladen County Superior Court, that specific consent order. And I'll talk more about the significance of it and what it required. In 2019, we saw one of the main remedial engineering feats be implemented there at the plant, Chemours, and the implementation of a thermal oxidizer to prevent these compounds to no longer come out as stack emissions and then potentially impact the environment and other receptors like citizens' private wells and their drinking water. We continue to sample, and I'm going to show you some information on that this evening regarding different media, including private wells, and we're currently focused on where these compounds are at and how they can be cleaned up in the environment, not only to include Bladen County, but surrounding counties like Cumberland, Sampson, and Robeson. So this particular slide, you'll see in the photograph, the Fayetteville Works plant is kind of the white area with the different somewhat square associated manufacturing process areas. The Cape Fear River would be on the far right of this slide. The red dots are groundwater monitoring wells, just showing you the detections in groundwater of that one compound we've already talked a lot about, which is Gen X, and some other compounds you may hear a lot in the national or local media, meaning PFOA and PFOS, or older or what we call legacy PFAS compounds. These detections are in nanograms per liter. You'll hear a similar unit, meaning part per trillion. Those are the same thing, part per trillion or nanograms per liter. But high levels of these compounds were unfortunately found in the groundwater there at the Fayetteville Works plant. Private well testing then commenced around the plant to ensure that these compounds were not presenting exposure risk to the surrounding communities and citizens. We have asked Chemours to test additional wells on out into surrounding counties. We'll share some information on that front this evening. And in 2017, the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services established a drinking water health goal, meaning the 140 part per trillion or nanogram per liter level that really identifies what level of this compound should or should not be ingested at a safe level. So Consuming private well water or a surface water level above that 140 level, according to DHHS, could have health impacts. So that's what that number means. The consent order that I briefly noted that was entered into in February of 2019 did limit those air emissions, which are really one of the most significant sources of these compounds entering the environment, Bladen County, Cumberland, Robeson, Sampson, as I've mentioned before. It also required notification of downstream utilities if there were potentials for discharges to the Cape Fear River above that Health and Human Services health goal of 140 parts per trillion. It did require the sampling of drinking water wells, as we have stated, and specific penalty provisions if Chemours failed to meet any of these specific consent order requirements. So what's going on right now in Bladen and surrounding counties? There's been several years now of private drinking water well sampling, and sampling continues until wells a quarter mile out from the last detection are found to be free of these compounds. So it starts around the Fayetteville Works plant and works its way out in concentric circles. And I'll show you some maps on this. For those that unfortunately, meaning private drinking water wells that have this compound of Gen X at or above that Health and Human Services health advisory level of 140 parts per trillion, they're either provided a filter system, I'll show you a picture of it, or where available, to include some citizens in Bladen County, municipal water connection. And we really appreciate the coordination of the commissioners, Chairman Brett, and all the work, Mr. Martin, Kip McClary on this front. It's been a great collaborative effort to ensure that citizens have these opportunities. Where there's lower levels, the last bullet here, of these detections, meaning less than that health goal as established at the state level, then citizens receive an under the sink type filter that will remove these compounds from the well water. And I will show you a picture of those so you can have an idea of what they look like. There are some significant updates that we wanted to make sure this body is aware of. Our department has determined that Chemours is also responsible for impacts in the lower Cape Fear, to include New Hanover County, potentially Pender, Brunswick, and Columbus. We're working with them to assess those particular impacts, primarily to groundwater. There are detections of these compounds in the Cape Fear, where the river serves some drinking water supplies in the lower Cape Fear region. And we're asking Chemours to expand their off-site assessment to address these lower Cape Fear impacts. We're also asking them to review existing well data, to include well data in Bladen County, to address the eligibility for additional filtration systems or connection to municipal water based on some anticipated changes at the federal level. And I'm going to go over that with you in the upcoming slide. But basically what this third bullet is saying is EPA is looking at a revised number for that Gen X health goal, which I said was 140 parts per trillion in North Carolina. We're expecting it could go down significantly. If it does go down significantly, there is the potential for Bladen County, Cumberland County, Robeson County citizens to be eligible either for municipal water or a different type of filtration system. And I'll go over that a little more, but this is a significant development. We're also asking them to, this fourth bullet, revise the public water feasibility, since this federal number is expected to go lower than the 140 part per trillion, as we've discussed this evening, to develop a plan to transition those citizens to a different type of filter or municipal water option. And we have a lot of this information on that fifth bullet in that web link that's provided at the bottom of this slide. So as we talk about the potential for this health goal, once again, 140 part per trillion Gen X to be lowered, this is coming at the EPA federal level. I work for the state, DEQ. This is a federal action at the EPA level. They're looking at a revised toxicity assessment, which is a summary of potential health effects associated with a chemical. And this chemical we're talking about tonight is Gen X. And it includes a reference dose, which is the starting point for a health advisory or a particular regulatory level. And the EPA reference dose for Gen X is lower than the reference dose used in calculating that 140 part per trillion number that we currently use at the state level, and we use it for Bladen County citizens where we're looking at what water filter options they would have. So the big question tonight, what does this mean? Well, what it means is, based on this lower reference dose that we're hearing from the Federal Environmental Protection Agency, it's expected that the EPA National Drinking Water Health Advisory will be lower. We're hearing significantly lower than 140 part per trillion. And this health advisory will be used to provide drinking water guidance when available. The consent order that I mentioned with Comores that was entered into in Bladen County Superior Court references two things: Gen X at 140 part per trillion or any applicable health advisory. So you can see the connection as this number may change. And so we're anticipating this in the spring of 2022 from EPA, and we have sent Comores, as the previous slide showed, a letter asking them to prepare a transition plan as this lower value is expected. So what's the scope? This slide shows you the gray polygon, which is the Fayetteville Works plant in Bladen County. It shows you properties around the plant in red that currently have Gen X at or above that 140 level in their private well. It shows you yellow parcels with private wells that have some detection of these man-made compounds, not just Gen X, but possibly others, but they're lower than 140 part per trillion. And then green parcels where private wells have none of these compounds detected. So the scope here is big, not just Bladen, but Cumberland and on to the northeast into Sampson. And what that means is, as this work continues, and it's now 18 miles from the plant, over 6,000 homes have had their private wells sampled, and over 200 of them have this Gen X compound above that 140 number. These values could change, and change significantly with that federal lowering of the toxicity assessment for the Gen X compound. So this slide here, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on, but it's in your list of slides. We're showing it this evening. It's from Comores and their consultant, showing that scope of sampling of private wells. The Fayetteville Works plant in the orange polygon dead center, but it shows you the different radiuses out from the plant up to 18 miles where private wells are currently being sampled. So we felt it was important this evening to provide commissioners an update on the scope of this work and that this work is ongoing, and to ensure you have this information readily available to you. As I talked about the filters, this is what Bladen County citizens, Cumberland County citizens are receiving. The top right photo is a whole house granular activated carbon system. You think about everything from your refrigerator has some type of filter on it sometimes. This is a much larger system that directly filters the well water before it goes into the house. It's often installed in a separate utility shed that Comores provides, if that compound Gen X is currently at or above the 140 part per trillion. If there are lower level detections in the private well water, then these under the sink, they're called RO or reverse osmosis systems are installed. So just wanted to make sure you had an idea of these filter units. We have sampled them at the state level. They're very effective. We support, Comores using them. We've approved them, and they do remove these compounds efficiently. So a lot of people ask about municipal water. Some people love their well water. Other people say, if you can get a water line to me, please do it. We hear all the above. Under the consent order, there are requirements for Comores to provide municipal water where it is feasible, and that Gen X compound is currently found at or above the health goal. We have determined, in conjunction with Bladen and Cumberland counties and support of your colleagues, that public water has not been feasible on the east side of the Cape Fear River. Either the population density or proximity to water lines is just not there. And we didn't do it only as the state. We worked with Bladen and Cumberland County to reach those decisions. We're pleased with the work that's occurred here very recently from Bladen County to find those municipal water options for some residents on the west side of the river that unfortunately have the Gen X compound in their private well water. And we're still working on the Cumberland piece, which is west of the Cape Fear River. So in wrapping up, I'm going to hit a few slides fairly quick this evening, but just wanted to share with you some of the major work that's underway to address the residual PFAS or these compounds that are currently in the environment. A big piece is the consent order, which I've touched on tonight. There's work at the old outfall, which I'll show you a picture of. Stormwater work to manage any rainwater that leaves the Fayetteville work site so that these compounds are not within it. And I'll show you some pictures of some flow-through seeps. And the big item is the last bullet. If you've not heard about the work on the barrier wall, it's significant, and I want to show you some pictures of it. So the consent order did require remediation at what we call Old Outfall 002, where material was previously discharged to the Cape Fear River. There is now a treatment system with activated carbon that takes those groundwater flows, those stormwater flows, and removes these man-made compounds before it enters the Cape Fear River. That way, there's not a risk of it impacting private wells along the river, nor impacting downstream utilities that use the river as a source of drinking water. There's also been a lot of focus on 4 seeps, A, B, C, and D. They look like streams. Water flowing, as we're all used to, as a stream feature. It's actually groundwater from under the Fayetteville Works plant that surfaces and then flows to the Cape Fear River. Unfortunately, there's high levels of these man-made compounds in those seeps next to the river. And so treatment systems, once again, that activated carbon material are being used to remove these compounds before they exit to the river. The big remediation design that should be online by 2023, Chemours is installing a 6,000 feet. This is significant, over a mile long, probably one of the largest on the East Coast, if not the largest on the East Coast. Barrier wall, which will actually go 80 feet deep from the surface of the soil to the lower parts of the soil profile. It'll be a 1/2 meter thick wall and will be installed with a 1-pass installation of soil, bentonite material, and cement along that 6,000 foot wall area. There'll be 64 extraction wells installed to remove groundwater and treat that groundwater, cutting off the flow of this material, meaning groundwater that originates under the Fayetteville Works plant and preventing it from reaching the Cape Fear River with a design flow rate of almost 1,000 gallons per minute. So we wanted to share these major updates on remediation with you. Like I said, this one is due to be online in 2023. We've reviewed the 60% design for the barrier wall. We'll be reviewing the 90% design very soon regarding this remediation technology. As I've noted, one of the biggest items was the installation of the thermal oxidizer, achieving almost a 99.99% control efficiency. So we're very pleased with that remediation system that was installed by Chemours. Our Division of Air Quality continues to monitor that in conjunction with Chemours. There's also the requirement for a facility-wide reduction of Gen X. There was some recent exceedances of that particular rolling limit, and so we did take a compliance action, penalty action related to that with the plant and continue our discussions with them on that front. So in summary, tonight, we continue to share information and appreciate the opportunity to work with Bladen County and to update the Board of Commissioners. We do put out a community update. Laura Leonard, who's with me tonight, works on this to ensure all citizens that want to send us their email, we push this information out, all the web links. DHHS participates with us on this community update, and we just had a community information session last month. It had to be held virtually. We hope to be back in Bladen or Cumberland County for the next meeting in person, but we held this last one virtually to also share updates. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate again the opportunity to share these updates. A lot of great work with our fellow colleagues in Bladen County and other state agencies. So thank you.
Yes, sir, Mr. Scott, and I personally would like to thank you as being the commissioner that has worked with you for the last few years with Mr. McClary and Mr. Martin, the time that you've given us, the advice that you've given us, and helped us work through all the situations that we have had. And the progress has been great and the response has been good. And on behalf of Chemours also, they have done what has been demanded and required of them to do so too. So my hat's off to both, and I appreciate every dime that they're spending to make sure we're all safe. And again, thank you for coming. Dr. Mongolia.
Okay, I have one question. I see, all the water is being, actions taken. How about on the river, the fishing? What's going on with that? Or in advisory going on to folks not to fish or to eat the fish?
Right, so great question. Thank you for it. There's been some limited fish tissue sampling. I will tell you that. So we have some data on that subject. There's university researchers who are also looking at this. We've had a couple of requests regarding a fish advisory. We've also had concerns with wild turkey hunting or deer hunting, should there be some public notification. We're working in concert with the Department of Health and Human Services on those requests. I would answer it by saying there's not a lot of data to speak to those risks as of yet, but we are working through those requests regarding wildlife and the additional question on fish tissue sampling. I don't know of a formal advisory that's going to be issued near term, but we have met and have been talking about those requests and how we're going to address them. The first piece is really having data showing that there is a risk. I'll tell you some of these newer compounds, Gen X is one of them. They're not tied up in the human body, potentially even in animals the same way, meaning they pass through our systems faster than some of the older compounds, meaning PFOA. Gen X is a replacement for PFOA. So great question, more to come on that, but no immediate, as I understand it from DHHS, plans to establish advisory on fishing.
Yes, sir.
On the question I have, do you have any data on any negative impact on the health issues of the citizens because of that?
Yeah, great question. When you look at this family, PFAS, per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, all the way from liver impacts to increased cancer risk, there's even some ties to cholesterol levels. There's a broad variety of health impacts, and I'm not the doctor, that's why we ask the HHS to join us in public meetings. But the health effects, there's a broad range of them. There has been blood serum sampling and a lot of more specific sampling of residents around the plant the past couple of years. I work on the environmental side, but I will tell you, as I mentioned, the federal updates and that 140 number, that was my big message tonight. That number's going down. There's a lot of new information related to the health effects by that compound. A lot of it ties to the liver, and I'll let the doctors be glad to follow up with you. And Dr. Zach Moore, the state epidemiologist, is the one who helps us with the specific health impact questions beyond what I gave you, meaning liver, increased risk for cancer, and other effects to the body.
Does Tim Moores provide any type of financial assistance because of the health issues, or maybe paying for the expenses that examination and so forth?
So through the consent order, there was a civil penalty that our state agency issued. We don't keep that penalty. It goes out under general statute to the counties and ultimately school systems. But there's provisions in there for what Chemours provides on toxicity assessments, work on additional information regarding these emerging compounds. So not fully answering your question, but the consent order addresses what Chemours has to pay for, what they're responsible for, and some of that includes additional work on toxicity studies, if you will. And I think that speaks partly to your question.
Mr. Scott, thank you. Very good presentation. My question is, have you been beyond Chemours? Have you been in Cummins County? Have you been on the military bases? Have y'all been places like that to check for this stuff? I mean, I haven't heard anything about it. Is it not visible up there or not showing up?
Yeah, we're unfortunately finding it. We've got data on the major military installations. Fort Bragg, we're hearing is working on a data summary right now. We have data, Camp Lejeune, Marine Corps, Cherry Point, Marine Corps. We have Air National Guard data. We have data from one of the firefighting foam manufacturers. You'll hear PFAS associated with firefighting foam. So to answer your question, yes, we have data in other areas of North Carolina.
Oh, Paula, what are you doing about that? I mean, you seem to be focused on the deep pockets of Chemours or DuPont, and you hadn't heard a thing about what's going on in these other places that might be spilling into the river and the grounds and stuff. I mean, I ain't trying to put you on the spot. I've heard rumors of it, but I hadn't never heard seen anything about it, so I just kind of curious why. I have no problem you focus where you do, because it's evidently you need to focus here, but I'm saying there's potential other areas that I'm hearing about that you're not hearing a whole lot about.
Yeah. The significance of Chemours as a PFAS manufacturer, if you will, is a scale all of its own. There's not another site in North Carolina where you're working 18 miles out from the plant. There's a lot of impact here because it came out as stack emissions, was carried by the prevailing wind, then deposited to the ground through dry or wet deposition. We are requiring other entities to assess groundwater, to sample private wells, same things Chemours is doing. Have they received, a several $1 million penalty? They have not. There's different criteria regarding the violations associated with Chemours, but we are requiring others to work through that same process. So to your point, there's other sites in North Carolina. We have a map showing those sites, and they are required to protect surrounding communities' drinking water, and also to assess how the environmental cleanup is going to proceed. So to your point, you may not hear as much about them. They're not at the same scale, meaning work that's 18 miles out from the plant and impact to a river like the Cape Fear that serves so many as a drinking water source. So
some of them could be contaminating the Cape Fear River.
Yeah, and
could be, but I'm saying that information is, all we hear about is Chemours, because it's in Bladen County. You're not hearing about these other problems. And you don't know that if it's 5 miles versus 18, it's a problem.
I fully understand. I would say right now we're working a lot out of Greensboro and Pittsburgh. And I will say you won't have to look very far to find information on Greensboro and Pittsburgh. It's another compound, 1,4-dioxane, but you'll have to maybe look outside of Bladen County, but you'll find those two communities are struggling with the emerging compound issue also.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah, the question I was asking, that's what I said, the future of the plant that's there. Some of these places that have generated this type of environmental impact, eventually they have shut them down. Is the future of this place with the new technology going to have it where this problem will ever go away, where you won't have this problem? We shooting for that target. And then the next thing I want to know is I have citizens approach me all the time, and I'm looking at DuPont, and we saying they put millions of dollars in the ground, and they're saying that their property is devalued because this stuff is all over the place. And they say they're actually losing, can't sell property. People don't want to farm on it, don't want to put cattle on it. And some of them have some complications with the property, that when they're trying to deal with their property, for where they're at. And I'm trying to state, if you're generating this stuff through stacks, and sometimes we hear the board is fine, a certain amount of money for DEQ. Is this because of system failures? What's causing them to be fined? So if they're going to keep having these kind of incidents, how do you correct all this stuff where that'll go away? So what's been put in place to correct all these situations that could possibly happen, right, so that people will feel safe once again, that Gen X is not all over the place? What is DEQ, how are they regulating that?
A great question. The main violation is associated with this plant was the compromise of North Carolina's drinking water and as a groundwater source. It's a state rule that groundwater can be used as a drinking water source and should be kept to that standard, meaning a well put in the ground and somebody can drink from that groundwater aquifer. And when these compounds were found, it set a violation of that requirement. As I walk through that stack emission thermal oxidizer control, that's eliminating the discharge of these compounds out the stack. That's a big item that occurred, okay? The other measures are along the river to ensure that water that's contaminated under the plant does not move out to the communities surrounding it, nor to the river. So what the action did, meaning the consent order that was filed in Bladen County Superior Court, was to stop those discharges. And I'll say we're still working on that, but it sets that framework to stop those discharges to the environment and ensure that people have a safe and clean drinking water supply.
Where's the matching? Will it ever get to a point where the Gen X will deplete from those properties, where people are going to say, when you check them, there's no Gen X there? Would that ever go away? Or will it always be there? Is that just something that's gonna be a part of Gen X?
Right, it's a great question. It will take years. This isn't gonna go away next year or the year after. This will take years. But what you do with a piece of property, our department works on brownfield properties, old textile mills, coal plants. We can redevelop a property and do it safely. You may not be able to drink the water under it, but you can connect a municipal water line. You can make the soil safe to put a playground on it, to put a new manufacturing business on top of it. And so it's not that properties are unusable, you just have to cut off the exposure to these compounds. But the primary source is drinking them, ingesting them. If we cut off that source, then the properties often still have use, including agricultural purposes, as long as you're not irrigating from groundwater that's contaminated, putting that irrigation water on top of the crops. Because we cut off the stack emissions that were raining down the compounds on the surrounding community, if that makes sense.
Who absorbs that cost? That's the last thing I'm saying.
Good.
When you revitalize this property, redo this property, who absorbs that cost?
The example I gave was the brownfield property. It's often the revitalization is through a developer that wants to do that. In your example, I think it's a private citizen who may have been impacted. Calors is putting that bill to stop the discharges to give people safe drinking water. That's in that consent order. It's meant to be zero cost to the citizen. But great question. Appreciate you asking.
Oh, thank you. I look forward to you coming back again another day.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. McClary?
And we also have with us tonight, Mr. Logan Parsons. He's been our engineer on our Water District Phase 4 expansion. He's bringing updates on contracts and where we are as we're starting to close out this project. Logan?
Thank you, Mr. McClary. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. As Kip said, I'm Logan Parsons with LKC Engineering. I have just some quick updates I wanted to share with you related to the Phase 4 project. The big update is that construction is done. One of the items for you tonight is the final adjusted change order, which is just cleaning up the paperwork of what was scheduled to be installed versus what was actually installed. And then all the other construction items are complete. Now it's just a lot of paperwork associated with certifying lines, final training that goes to your staff, and just basically handing over the keys to the new water system, well, SCADA, and other components that were part of the project. So that process will continue over the next several weeks, and as we work with your funding source, USDA, to close out the funding for the project. So the two items before you tonight, one of them is, as I said, change order for contract one. Is change order number 3 for contract one, which is the water mains. It was about the final number was about 28.5 miles of water line installed throughout the county. What the final adjustment change order results in is about a $62,000 credit back to the job. It also adds about 90 days to their contract, which was necessary for getting the material, there's several material delays, but getting the material, getting it installed, and getting that water to where it's available to your citizens. So $68,000 credit for Harry Rivenbark's contract. What that means is that money goes to contingency funds towards your overall project. And then that's the last part of it. From there, we'll execute this upon consideration. If it's approved, we'll execute this change order, execute it with yourself, with USDA, and then once all other items are addressed, we'll pay your contractor out, or your entity will pay your contractor out any remaining funds due. The other item on there is amendment number 3 to our engineering services contract. That is for our services provided to you. There were 2 items that includes. One is for the additional engineering, which is associated with some additional lines that were added to serve residencies, and then also some additional sections that were required to make sure those lines were installed in the right places and in the right manner. So,
we combine C and D.
Make a motion on both.
Got a motion approved. So Mr. Cameron, got a second by Mr. Peterson. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Motion next order.
Second.
Got a motion by Mr. Peterson, action order vote. Second by Dr. Mangorn. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? So be it. Revenue Department, Ms. Renee Davis.
Good evening. Right.
Motion to approve AB.
Second. Got a motion by Mr. Peterson, a second by Mr. Hester. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? So be it. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll see this is just something that we noticed, we had several people to ask about these pieces of property, and the upset bid procedure has not been successful in securing buyers for these 3 properties, which have structures that need to be removed and are not rebuildable. We've looked at the zoning and they're not going to be able to rebuild on them. So, we wanted to see if you would consider approving the sealed bid procedure, and what we did was took the sale price and halved it, and we'll put it out there to say the sealed bid will be this amount with no less than that amount. And we'll see if we can get rid of those 3 properties like that.
Motion to approve.
Got a motion by Mr. Cottonville. Got a second by Mr. Gillespie. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you, ma'am. Health Department, Dr. Terry Duncan.
We'll try to keep this brief tonight.
Thank you, ma'am.
Let's start off talking about the Omicron variant. We know that on November the 24th, the Omicron variant was first reported to the World Health Organization. On November the 26th, World Health Organization named Omicron as a variant of concern, followed by the United States designation of the same on November the 30th, and the first case in the United States was on December the 1st. CDC has been working globally with health and industry partners to learn more about the Omicron. Right now, there's not a lot that we do know. It's going to take a couple of weeks, but we're working really hard on all levels. The Delta variant continues to be the main variant circulating.
Excuse me, Doctor. Let's take a recess just one moment. Give it about 5 minutes, folks.
This conference will now be recorded.
Go ahead, proceed.
So the Omicron, while it has received a lot of attention, certainly Delta is the main variant in the United States, and certainly in North Carolina, with about 99% of the cases being the Delta variant at this point. We do not have the Omicron variant in North Carolina. There are 13 or 15 states or so that do. The closest to us is Georgia. So it's anticipated that the Omicron variant will likely spread quickly as compared to the Delta variant. We don't know how quickly or how it will compare, but it's anticipated that it will spread more likely than the original COVID variant did. Will Omicron cause severe illness? We need a lot more data to know if it's going to cause severe illness. Right now, the cases in North Carolina seem to be pretty mild, and they seem to have been in vaccinated folks. That's good news. Will the vaccine work? It's anticipated that the current vaccines will protect against severe illness and hospitalization and death. And what other treatments will work? They're working to determine if the existing treatments, such as the monoclonal antibodies and some of the newer medications, are going to work on this one as well. So I think there that we just need to hold our own, be aware it is a variant of concern, and continue to monitor it. And then we'll go by what the CDC and North Carolina DHHS guidelines are. So where are we today? Bladen County had 5,677 total cases since a long time ago. April was a year ago. We currently have 67 active cases, and that's up from about 45 when we met last time. We have currently 4 in the hospital. When we met last time, we didn't have any in the hospital, and 95 deaths. So again, we're thankful and blessed in Bladen County. We have 5,517 recovered. Our current positivity, however, is 9.2%. When we met a month ago, we were at 2.7% in Bladen County. The state today was at 7.7% as compared to 5.1 a month ago. So we did anticipate this increase. We talked about that when we met last time, that we usually have that 9-week of a spike and then a couple of weeks that we level off, and this one was anticipated, and that was without the Omicron variant. So the Bladen County testing continues at the health department Monday through Friday, the drive-through testing, as well as StarMed that we talked about Monday through Friday. StarMed is doing rapid testing and PCR testing. The site at the health department is going to do additional rapid testing starting next week. StarMed continues to do the monoclonal antibodies as well as the hospital. We also have some testing occasionally at some of the pharmacies, but some of them are more selling now the home testing. As far as vaccines, we are vaccinating Monday through Friday at the health department. The hospital is vaccinating on Friday. And of course, our local pharmacies, CVS, Walgreens, and Walmart continue to vaccinate. I understand, and I had a call today and looked on Bladen Online, and there is an event on December the 11th that they're going to have some, according to the Bladen Online, they're going to have some incentives at that event, and that is an event with Mount Calvary that I'm not aware of, so maybe we'll get some more on that. Currently, we have given in excess of 16,500 first doses of vaccine in the Bladen County residents, and 15,500 are fully vaccinated. Of that, we have had 364 post-vaccination breakthroughs. That's pretty good average. We are holding at 51% of the population having received at least one dose, and 47% having that second dose. We have 5% as of today of the 5 to 11 age group have been vaccinated, 31% of the 12 to 17 age group, 46% 18 through 24, 49 of that 25 through 49, 60% of the 15 to 64 age group, and of those 65 years and older, we have a 76% vaccination rate.
A question, when we do the percentage overall in the county, I should have asked this last year probably. When you do the percentage, is that with the total number of people within the county or the total number of the people that are eligible to receive? Because that's the little deviation there that would be a little, not sound right.
It is. There's about a 2 or 3% increase if you take out those that are not eligible, the less than 5%.
Right.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am. Go.
When it comes to Walgreens, CVS, and Walgreens, you get those numbers. Their information is rolled into the county.
The numbers,
Right.
The Bladen residents have been vaccinated at all of the sites that I mentioned above, and they have been vaccinated outside of Bladen County, just as we vaccinated people from surrounding counties and other states.
Right. So my question is it Mount Calvary, the church, are you getting those numbers as well? Are they included?
We did get numbers. Remember, I reported to you that they had some difficulties, and I reported that to the state. And the state did contact Mount Calvary and the vendor. It took about 3 weeks to get the 120 or so people into the system. It has been correct.
Okay, so they'll send them in the next time. Okay, great. Thank you.
Mr. Pierce, I got A and B part. So I know some of the states, the President Biden's mandate through the OSHA. Some states, the judge ruled that that's unconstitutional. And the follow-up question is, if the state of North Carolina doesn't do that, can we do it as a county? Do you know that?
I think you could do it as a county,
What was that question?
but I sure hope that we allow folks to do the right.
I don't need to know that, that's the question.
What was that you asked?
I said, President Biden's, mandate to take the, vaccination, the judges overturned that. It was at one time 10 states. And I'm sure North Carolina's not gonna do it because of the Democrats that run it, Josh Stein. So I was wondering if that was something that we as a local board could do, protest it.
Private businesses have mandated in Bladen County that their employees have the vaccine, so.
You asked my question, you said yes, we could,
Yes, you could.
okay.
Any other questions? Thank you, Don. You notice we have a lot of advisory appointments for December 20th. Take a look at them, because there's a lot of them. I'm not gonna go through them, but, be prepared on the 20th. That being said, County Manager, Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to review the calendar with you for the remainder of December and January. And point out next Monday, the 13th at 5 p.m., the Health and Services Advisory Board meeting, Health Department. Wednesday, the 15th, from 11 until 5 p.m., there's a strategic planning session that will be held with board commissioners and planning team members. I want to let you know the location, because of the number of individuals that will likely attend and participate, that location has changed from the airport to the auditorium. We'll send you a reminder about that. On Monday, the 20th, the board meets here at 6:30. Offices are closed from Thursday, the 23rd through Monday, the 27th, in service of Christmas holidays. Offices are also closed Friday, the 31st. Moving over to January, the board meets here on Monday, the 3rd at 6:30 p.m. County offices are closed on the 17th in observance of the Martin Luther King holiday. There's also a parade here in Elizabethtown at 11 that morning. Board meets on Tuesday, the 18th at 6:30, and there's a strategic planning session scheduled at 11 a.m. with the board of commissioners. And right now, that location is still the airport. So, there are no questions about the calendar. Moving to item B. This is just for information. We have included the rules of procedure, the code of ethics, conflict of interest policy, and board and commission's policy and procedures and application. We can review as we do each year in December. This is an opportunity, if you have any suggestions or revisions you'd like to see incorporated, please let us know. We'll include that for the next meeting, and we'll ask you to approve these again. And then the last item, Mr. Chairman, is just to update you regarding the Trillium NCO LME realignment. As you all know, we sent information to you last week. A letter was received from Dr. Mindy Cohen, the HHS Secretary, stating that approval had been given to for Bladen County to disengage from East Point and realign with Trillium. Also, a requirement is to develop a detailed joint plan to be submitted to DHHS by December 20th. That is going to be worked on here expeditiously by Trillium in here in the coming weeks. So we'll keep you posted as far as all that is. This effective date again is February 1st. So less than 60 days. So that's all I have. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Individual delegation wish to address commissioners? Matter of interest, commissioners?
Yes, on that, matter that Miss, Dr. I've been referred to on that, vaccine clinic, it's gonna be at 418 MLK Drive. And it's gonna have incentives there. I think it's from 11 to 2. It's at 418 MLK Drive. The only reason I didn't intervene, because I know when we had a discussion about position of the board had taken on the Senate, I didn't want that to be a conflict, but I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that date. You know, I don't want to take a vaccine.
Anyone else? Under item 8, consider adopting a resolution in support of individual freedom over personal vaccination status.
Make a motion, we approve.
Got a motion by Mr. McGill, second by Mr. Peterson. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I just have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I know we're gonna vote when you want to vote, but, I may try to look in, to get people vaccinated, to stop spreading, or to get people to wear a mask. I mean, I can understand freedom of, they don't want to take the vaccine, okay. But to prevent the spread, we could then get support of a resolution to wear a mask. I guess for health-wise, why even bring up a resolution? Again, just let people have their right instead of doing the resolution. My question.
Any further discussion?
That was the only thing, I think this is one that we got from Brunswick County, somewhere they forwarded to it, came from Windham County. And I looked at that come in, and I kind of just wanted to share my view on that. It seems to be counterproductive for us to have issues that we vote on, where we're talking about people's freedom to do things. Then we come and contradict that whole concept, and now we're going to tell them what they shouldn't do through a resolution. I think we just need to let people, if we're going to go on this freedom thing and let people have their rights to do what they want to do, then we just need to let them have their rights to do what they want to do and not get into mandating, telling everybody what to do, because this is mandating them not to do it.
No, this does not say that.
So you tell them about freedom of vaccination. You involved with these people thinking, and like I said, our people in this county are intelligent people. We've been going over this issue again and again about who has the right to do something. Now we're gonna sit down here and we're gonna impose our position on the right that they should have. Let them do what they want to do.
Yeah. And this is, a big issue with me, so I thought about it a lot the last couple of weeks and made some notes, so indulge me just for a moment. It's about being proactive rather than us sitting here if a mandate's passed and us saying, oh my goodness, now what are we going to do? It's us being very clear. So here's my thoughts on it. Take it for what it's worth. I won't do this often, I promise. There are 3 words that separate us from every other nation in the world, and that's we the people. Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, he endorsed self-government. We're a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Roll your eyes, you can think of me what you will, but we're seeing our freedom slip away more and more. We exist in a bottom-up, not a top-down government. We've never been told what to do. We've never been mandated or made decrees telling us what to do. We're elected, and so is every other elected official, not to rule, but to be responsible to our people. Ours is not to produce or promote freedom, but to protect it. Ultimately, these citizens of this great county don't answer to us, nor do we answer to a government higher than us. But government answers to us. Liberated people all over the world have freedom because we fought for their freedom. How dare we just give away our freedoms and say, we'll do whatever we're told. Ultimately, our liberty is at stake today and who we are as Americans. Today in New York City, the most far-reaching piece of legislation was passed in a state of emergency that determines who can go to a playground, who can go in a restaurant, who can go into a bar or a gym. Now, I would understand this if the unvaccinated were the only people that could transmit, get, or spread this virus, but that's just not the case. The unity of our union is at stake. We're trying to divide people between the vaccinated and the unvaccinated. That's why I was so upset at our last meeting at polling our employees saying, all right, who's got the vaccine, who doesn't? We've never been governed by mandates and we shouldn't be now. If we allow the government to dictate this, what next? It's not being about pro or anti-vax. It's about allowing the freedom of medical choice. I'm amazed the very people who are pro-choice when it comes to the matter of life are pro-force when it comes to the matter of a vaccine. In closing, we need to trust our citizens and employees to make the decision that is best and right for them personally. So I urge my fellow commissioners to pass this resolution to assure that we will not force anyone to violate their own conscience or to make medical decisions based on their fear that they might just lose their job. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So this, Mr. Cogdell, this resolution is about the freedom to make personal health choices. That's all I'm saying.
Can I, Ms. Chairman, one thing? I'm not worried about, I agree with freedom. I fought for this freedom. Okay, so I fought, put my life on the line for freedom. So did my father and my other family members. I'm just saying, the purpose of the resolution to say you have the freedom, they have that regardless of what we say. You cannot tell a business that their employees are not going to be vaccinated. This doesn't help them. This is just only county people. That's it. Most of our citizens work in New Hampshire, Brunswick, and other counties. I support their rights. I support that. That's because I can stay home or I can wear a mask, protect myself. So I respect that they want to say, I don't want vaccination. I'm okay with that. So they have that right. But to do a resolution to say what, does what? We support you to say over personal vaccination status. I'm okay, whatever they do. So I don't want to vote. I'm not going to vote on either way to tell you that you don't have that right, because you do. This piece of paper doesn't change anything.
We might not have that right a month from now or 6 weeks from now if a mandate comes down from the federal government. So this is just us drawing a line in the sand saying, where do we stand if this mandate comes down? That's all.
I'll call for questions, call for a vote. In favor of, show of hands, your right hand if you would, in favor of individual freedom over personal vaccination status. That count, Bert. Opposed? 5-4. Thank you.
Mr. Brett, on the next item, I make a motion that we approve it shall be unlawful for any person to discharge a firearm or other lethal weapons across any such road or highways in Bladen County. And I've talked to Mr. Adams 3 or 4 times, and I've called everybody that's called me over the weekend, which my phone rung off the hook. And I told them this is the change that we made. And even Mr. Adams agrees that there's no problem with this. It's not, Mr. Adams right here. It's not about what's happened, it's what could happen to the citizens of Bladen County driving on the road.
Oh, you said do this one? This one?
The one that's been corrected.
I don't have anything. No one gave me anything. That's what you're saying. I don't have that. So I'll vote on this.
That's that rule, please. That's my motion, Mr. Brett.
You're saying take off your.
What's it? So it's just.
So you're taking the part off the count on the side of the road, just adding the part of how it's across the roadway.
Can I get a second and we'll go for discussion? Got a second. Got a motion by Mr. Peterson, a second by Mr. Hester. Any further discussion?
I've got one discussion on this. Now, I know we did this a couple of years ago, I think when they came in with the dogs. And talking about chasing dogs across people's property and all this kind of stuff. And we got into stature, and the guys from the wildlife came in and they spoke with us about this. And my thing is, if we implement that, just like Mr. Alamo has said, first of all, who's going to enforce it? If we're gonna get the sheriff to enforce it, we're gonna do game warden?
No, county wildlife.
But they told us that the same thing about the dogs. That was their jurisdiction as far as what happens on that highway and what goes on out there. And that's where we left it. We left it just that way. This is your jurisdiction, not the county jurisdiction. They already had a rule on the book to stipulate that. And I'm saying right now, you got the same stipulation on this.
There's no stipulation on the book.
The state house state
across the road.
State house state right away, child.
It's not about right of ways. It's about shooting a gun across the highway.
So if I stand over
with right of way.
But what I'm saying, child, if a person stands over in the woods and shoot a gun across the road, who's gonna enforce that? The wildlife, or is it?
What will happen here is if we approve, if this gets approved, it'll go to the General Assembly to approve. We cannot enforce it. It will go to Raleigh for their approval or disapproval.
So what's the intent of it? For us to consider a rule, consider a law in Bladen County that you can't do? Is that what what's the intent?
The intent is protect vehicles coming down the road.
So has that been an issue? I'm asking, why did the issue arise all of a sudden that we want to talk about it? That's what I'm trying to say.
I told you last meeting, I was approached to put it on the agenda, and I informed you last week it'd be on the agenda. So now let's vote it up and vote it down.
Charles, I'm asking, who brought this to you?
I don't give my sources.
Well, I'm asking.
Most county is in effect.
No, I'm just asking a general question. Is it something that people are doing, or is it something?
My understanding, 49 of them already have.
Most of them have. And counties, basically, they can do pretty much on game laws, counties, it boils down to county.
That's my problem. And I got it now, when you look at it, I disagree with it, I didn't understand why we're doing it, but I see now that he marked it, it's just saying to discharge a firearm or other lethal weapons across any road or highway. And that's what we want. We don't want them to do it. Yeah, that's what he said. Yeah.
No, this is not doing nothing.
That's anything. That's all it is.
All in favor, say aye, raise your right hand.
Yeah. Now I understand.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Trying to get it.
Yes, we're done.
Second motion by Mr. Peterson, adjourned, second by Mr. McGill. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Right, that's right. And they go